Welcome to PolyCast, a civilization podcast focused on game strategy.
CanusAlbinus,
Makahlua,
the main team,
MegaBearsFan.
Hello everybody, it's episode 427 of PolyCast. It's 2024, a new year, and we're going to be here this time, I promise. At least, I think I can promise. We're joined with only two of us today. We got Makahlua.
It's 2024 and I still haven't had enough coffee.
And MegaBearsFan is also here.
And also possibly a toddler. So if you hear toddler noises, that's not me, that is the toddler.
We got our first snow of the year this morning. It's already gone. I'm sad.
Oh, it's going to try to be cold and snowy here next weekend. And I'm like, no, I don't want it. You can keep it.
Snow would be fun. I wouldn't mind seeing some snow.
You're in Vegas, though, so you can get it at one of the casinos, right?
We just go to the casino and buy snow at the snow store?
No, I mean, isn't there like some place in Las Vegas that's got like an indoor snow rink or something?
Oh, probably. I mean, we have a few indoor skating rinks, and of course there's a hockey stadium, so... Yeah, I'm not sure offhand, though, if there's like a place that has like indoor snow. I don't know, we locals rarely go to like the Strip or downtown, so a lot of us honestly don't even know what's down there.
I've only been to Vegas once, and I didn't like it. I felt dirty being there. It was like I was being affected by the sin in the casino.
That might be all the ambient cigarette smoke you were absorbing.
It could be that too.
The newer casinos are a lot better about that. And depending on which one you were at, like the older ones are just awful. Like Circus, which for some reason still has not been demolished, has like 8.5-foot ceilings, and it's like being in a closet in which everyone has been smoking for the last 60 years.
Yeah, even if it's banned, it still reeks of a cigarette box.
Yeah, a lot of the newer casinos have much more open floor plans, and you know they still smell like smoke a little bit, especially if you're like walking like through the slot machines or in the sports book, but most of them are not that bad anymore.
Well, the old way casinos used to be built was to try and hide the entrance and exit so you couldn't get out.
They still kind of do that, but they have actually like wide, like for lack of a better word, avenues now for navigating around. So you don't have to be like walking like right through the middle of the slot machines and like right next to people who are smoking right in your face. You at least get like a few feet of buffer on either side.
One I was at had a big fish tank in the middle of the swimming pool, and there were sharks swimming around. And it was very interesting. But anyway, we should get to Civ, or Civ adjacent topics.
Yes, and the first topic will be a little bit of news out of Korea, in which there was, as far as I know, the first ever Civilization concert. It was an entire symphony performance of, from what I can tell from the news, nothing but Civilization music. It's available on YouTube. In fact, I think Civilization's official YouTube channel posted a video of it. I have not actually gotten around to watching it yet. It showed up in my feed and just haven't gotten around to it yet. But if you enjoy the music of Civ, definitely worth giving it a listen. I've done in the past some concerts for like specific franchises. Like I've seen like a Star Trek concert, and I've seen a Star Wars concert, and I've seen a video games concert, but never, of course, a Civ exclusive concert. So that would be fun.
This was
actually.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Okay, this was done on August 27th of last year, so it's been a little while, but they finally just put it out on YouTube, I think.
It's really interesting how video game music is starting to be considered more legitimate music, you know? I don't think it got as much respect previously, but then there's this concert, and now there's also, I know they're trying to schedule some Stardew Valley's music as concerts. Like they sold out on nearly instantly, too, which... that's just amazing.
Pokemon
Music is very powerful when it comes to nostalgia, And, for one thing, we have now an entire generation of adults in their 30s and 40s with hopefully some disposable income who have very nostalgic memories for video games, and music triggers all those memories very effectively. So,
Pokemon concerts always do well.
yeah, I remember like back in, gosh, it was like the mid 2000s, I think, like somewhere around like 2006. I saw the Video Games Live concert. They had a performance here in the Vegas area, and they performed Baba Yetu. And, I had not seen the set list prior to going, so it kind of just blew me away and took me to tears because I wasn't expecting it. I was expecting the music from Mario and Sonic and, stuff like that, but I wasn't expecting, what at the time was still a very niche game in Civilization. It wasn't like a huge mass marketable game because strategy wasn't big back then unless it was StarCraft.
Bigger back
So
then
that
than
was
it is now.
Yeah, so that was a very pleasant surprise.
I had a fun time explaining to my uncle who has played music for probably 60 years, or not 60 years, 40 years. He's around 60 years old. That video game music wins Grammys, and he's like, "No, it doesn't. It's all crap." And then I played Baba Yetu, and he's like, "Okay, this is pretty good."
Well, in fact, I think after Baba Yetu won that Grammy, like a year or two later, I think they actually added a category for video game music.
They did.
So,
True.
yeah, there's some piece of video game music every year that's winning a Grammy, presumably. I don't know who the winners have been since.
That sounds like a Googleable question.
Yeah, the only problem we run into is convincing those generation older than us that no, it's not. Well, okay, my mom wouldn't because she actually plays video games. She understands it. But other people, like I tried to do it with my aunts or uncles, would be like, don't get it. Why would you do that? Why would they give awards? Some people just don't get it.
Well, I mean, it's not all that different from, the music from movies, I mean, it's
Yeah.
really hard for me to comprehend that someone would understand why there are concerts dedicated to like John Williams scores, but, not to video game music. Like I guess I kind of get it, like back in like maybe the early 90s when all video game music was still in like MIDI formats, but like as soon
Yeah.
as games were on CD-ROMs, like and there was actual CD quality music on them. Sorry, the toddler has a lot to say right now. Yeah, I mean, you were getting like real legit music along with like voice acting and stuff like that. So that was a huge paradigm shift for video games in those late 90s, early 2000s when games being on CDs became standard.
The first Grammy Award for Best Score and Best Score Soundtrack for Video Games and Other Interactive Media has only existed since 2023.
Oh.
And last year it was won by Assassin's Creed Valhalla Dawn of Ragnarok.
Huh.
What was the other nominees?
Aliens, Fireteam Elite, Call of Duty Vanguard, Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy, and Old World by Christopher Tin.
Huh. I have not played it, so I don't know how good the music is on that.
I can't imagine it's bad.
Yeah.
Well, I haven't heard any music from Christopher Tin that was bad, so I'm surprised that didn't take the award.
Well, he's just not popular enough, probably. Despite the fact that he
all
is
of
on
the
a
games
record
that you
label
listed-
now.
Yeah, the games that you listed do sound like they were on like the more popular gaming end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
As opposed to, you'd expect the genuinely better music to actually be in a lot of the lower budget or indie games.
I was going to say, yeah.
Well, that's the
Or at least
Grammys.
the
Very
more memorable
mainstream.
music. Yeah, that sounds like a very mainstream list. So I'm imagining there's probably not a lot of like very avid gamers who are probably in that selection committee.
Probably not.
Yeah, so it's probably just a bunch of people who like probably heard their grandkids playing the big Assassin's Creed game for 120 plus hours and had that score drilled into their brain.
Well, this year's nominees that will be announced on February 4th who the winner are Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, God of War Ragnarok, Hogwarts Legacy, Star Wars Jedi Survivor, and Stray Gods the role-playing musical.
Well, at least one of those is kind of off.
I will say the God of War games have actually always had pretty good soundtracks. So that one I definitely think probably deserves a nomination. I have not played Ragnarok. I played the previous God of War game, So I don't know how good Ragnarok's soundtrack is on its own, but that series has always been pretty good in the musical category.
Yeah, I would say that video game music in general tends to be pretty good, um, at least from a Grammy point of view, because that's where a lot of composers end up going when they finish high school and realize, or finish college and realize, oh hey, the only jobs available are in industries that don't get popular appearance or don't get a lot of mainstream approval. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like all the composers from 20 years ago who were big are still big, and fewer people get a chance to do anything.
Well, video games are going to keep a lot of those, people working. Like a case in point is I've been playing through Alan Wake 2, and like minor spoiler here, but there is a chapter in the game that is like presented like a stage musical, and the game uses a mixture of live action and in-engine video. So like they actually hired actual dancers and choreographers to like do a full-on like stage musical dance performance, and in fact, it was performed at the video game awards. So a lot of people probably saw it there. But as opposed to just getting one one dancer and motion capturing the performance for the entire dance troupe and doing it all in engine, they actually recorded it live. So I'm sure that got a lot of dancers a welcome paycheck.
Yep. Next topic? I guess I'm the instructor, or the introducer, so Civilization has decided to continue its Challenge of the Month series. The one that ends in 3 days from 3 days from recording date is the Seven Seas Challenge for December of 2023. Has anybody played it?
No, I've been a little busy.
I have also been quite busy, but I have played a little bit of it. You're the Vikings, not the new Vikings, I don't think. And you play on a map that is large islands, high seas, or high sea level, very wet. So there's lots of marshes, lots of jungle, lots of water, and it starts in the classical era, which is annoying for me because it's like, I want to get all this early stuff done early. But the map is interesting. You start close to Gitarja, and she doesn't like you because you always are settling on the coast because you're Norway. And I think I saw Lisbon and Mali, Maori, Portugal instead of Lisbon. But basically, you win either by diplomacy or conquest or religious. So you have to go out and, meet everybody and do everything that way. I have found it very difficult because it's a large map, so there's 10 other civs, and it's really hard to get going on a classical era start where you start in the tundra.
And when you say you win through like diplomacy and conquest and stuff like that, it is like the normal Civilization VI victory conditions, right? They don't modify them in any way, do they?
It's the same conditions, except you can't win by science or culture.
And does the game like end earlier? Like, does it only go through like the Renaissance, or do you actually go through into the modern era like normal?
I think it goes normal. Because I have only made it to the Renaissance age in the game I was playing. But it's quite fun. Not for you if you are not particularly interested in early barb sieges, because you start on a large continent that's almost all tundra, and there's nobody else on the continent but you, and it's the classical era, so they have catapults and battering rams. So make sure you have city defenses. You will need them. And also lots of units.
Indeed.
I do see it noted that's also with the Heroes and Legends mode on too, so at least you have a little extra help.
Yes, I got Beowulf right at the start, so it was very appropriate. There's also a wonder, or a natural wonder somewhere directly to like the left or to the right, which would be the east of your island, that is really, really good. It's like all kinds of lots of good gold and culture and stuff, but it's on an island by itself, so you got to be careful because there's barbs there.
Now, I also haven't played any of these challenges yet, but is the map also fixed each time you play? Okay.
It's the same map for everybody all over the world.
Okay, got it. That's what I thought, but I wasn't entirely sure.
And that's about it for that one. It ends in 3 days, so probably after this podcast goes out. But pay attention to the Steam updates on Civilization's page, and you'll find this kind of stuff. Or just look at Civ Fanatics, because I'm sure they'll announce it too.
Yeah, this basically sounds like it's I think like Civ Fanatics used to do, or probably still does, their like game of the week or game of the month. And it sounds like Firaxis basically just took that idea and like made it official.
Well, it's not the first time somebody has thought to do that as a company.
Oh yeah, definitely not. And for our listeners who are maybe not super familiar with all of this, how does one get to these game modes?
For these, you have to open the game and then there'll be a little pop-up on the side that says play 7 Seas Challenge right now. And if you open a menu or something, sometimes it doesn't work after that, so just restart the game and click it again. Because I ran into that problem once. I was like, oh, I gotta change the settings because this is the first time I've started Civ on this new computer. And like, oh, it's not letting me click on anything.
Can you also get to it through, the additional content menu, which usually lists like mods and scenarios? I would think it would be under there too.
I thought you could find it there, but it didn't turn out to be there when I was looking for it. So, I don't know. I don't think so.
Well, speaking of I don't know. I don't have a good transition. Guess what? Someone's doing an open source Alpha Centauri. Yay! It's in a very, very, very super stage because they do have a list of their roadmap. But they're only at the second stage, which is just getting into basic map functions and things like that. It is called GL SMAC. It is up on GitHub if you want to follow it. There is one screenshot currently of where they've got like the basic map functions running in part of the UI. And I'm looking at this UI stretched out for a modern screen, and I'm going, ooh, I wonder if they can change some of the elements in that. Because there's like this the tiny info boxes that were used to be in the middle that took up all the thing is like 1/3 of this huge bar now. And I'm like, oh, that's going to be hard to read on a modern monitor.
Yeah, a little bit.
Although, but you might can tell I'm excited because I would like to be able to play it without having to do all sorts of loading, finagling with things shenanigans. Because even though I've got the copies of the original game, even though there's good old games ports of it, you can go buy it. It's still kind of a. It's not that it's. I'll have words in a minute. So sorry.
Me too.
I want to play it more, but sometimes it's like with a lot of older games, it's a little challenging to get it to run sometimes.
Does it run with the system clock?
Oh, I don't know. But
Yes, it would be nice. It would be nice if Electronic Arts would allow them to do a remaster of Alpha Centauri, but not do what Firaxis did with Beyond Earth to it.
I mean, we've been saying this for years. Like, to us, it feels like EA is sitting on a gold mine by not either re-releasing this game or by actually making a sequel to it.
In an era when we do have so many other remasters, like games that have been out for half the time of Alpha Centauri have had like 3 remasters and re-releases, and we don't even have one. And I know it's strategy, but even like Blizzard went back and updated like StarCraft. So come on, guys.
Like I think there's a remaster of Warcraft, and then there was the
but that one was terrible.
Yeah, well, sure. But, I mean, we've also seen like Age of Empires, I think 2 and maybe also 3 got a remaster. I want to say, oh God, what was it? The Microsoft game from like the early 2000s, Rise of Nations, I think.
Yeah.
Got a remaster. So yeah, like, come on.
All these other classes are getting remasters. Why don't you do Alpha Centauri? We're in an era where sci-fi is popular too.
Yeah, 2K, you need to give us a Civ 2 remaster, and EA, you need to give us an Alpha Centauri remaster. Come on, get on it.
I do know that the source code for Civ 2 is lost, so I don't know if they can do that easily.
Oh, okay. Well, then in that case, if they actually have to actually do work to redevelop a whole game, that's probably not going to happen, unless what was it, Sid Meier, or what was the other guy's name?
Brian Reynolds.
Unless one of them like just finds it on their hard drive somewhere and sends it to 2K or Firaxis.
Well, I know that they've been looking for that the community has been looking for the Civ 2 source code since at least the beginning of this show, and that was 18 years ago.
Man,
so
that sucks. And you can't even like reverse compile it or anything like that.
I'm sure they could if they tried, but
because I'm pretty sure that like I remember seeing that's basically how Bluepoint does all of their remasters. Like when they did Shadow of the Colossus, they just took the PS2 game disc, reverse compiled it, and pulled out all the assets and all the code and everything.
They probably could do that. It's just that's their excuse.
Yeah.
Also, Civ 2 is not part of the Firaxis thing, so I don't know if they own the rights to Civ 2 or not.
Oh, that's true. That was probably like Microprose or something like that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, anyway, EA, Alpha Centauri, get on it.
Although, if you look on Steam now, a lot of the old Microprose flight sims are available now.
Yeah. Well, in fact, I think I want to say Civ 3 might still even be on. Well, I think Civ 3 was under the Firaxis label though, so
Yes,
that
it
wasn't
was.
Microprose.
It wasn't Microprose at all. It was Firaxis and Hasbro and Infogrames. And then they got bought by 2K, and that made Soren Johnson mad. This is my memories of the early days of PolyCast's news stories.
Sounds juicy.
Season 1 level stuffs. Okay, so let's move on to forum talk. We've got another Alpha Centauri topic, and this is a topic that starts out with this. Well, it turns out that Alpha Centauri can be really good as a kind of helping me when I have a breakdown type of thing, but then it turns out that it's just a foil for this guy being like, oh, this game actually has a heart. And it has actual like feeling to what was written about, and all the characters feel like they actually belong in the world, and the world actually believes in itself. And compared to that, to games like Beyond Earth, where they're cardboard cutouts practically,
with all of 2 lines of dialogue,
2 lines of voiced dialogue.
Remember, no village was ever ruined by trade.
Well, Alpha Centauri had the advantage of having more people paying attention to the writing of it, and even had 1 or 2 novelizations that came out with it. So there was somebody on there actually put thought into world building and writing and everything else. It's like there was a game with I don't know, game with a story with a game. That's just like, there were other good things about Beyond Earth, but it was missing that expanded story element. Where everything sort of, the factions felt more real, as opposed to let's do a capitalist faction. Let's do a be friendly to the natives faction.
It was refreshing when I was reading about this. Like, oh, hey, somebody actually wrote a capitalism faction that isn't just all the worst parts of capitalism shoved in your face.
That's what Morgan is.
Yeah, Morgan is much more of a we want everyone to be rich, and we need to do trade and gather stuff because that's how we progress as a society, as opposed to just give me all your money.
Yeah.
Which is the way...
Morgan, am going to be at the top of the pile, but I want a big pile, and everybody's in the pile.
It's like
you're saying,
go ahead.
So you're saying that she does not follow the Ferengi rules of acquisition. Once you have their money, you never give it back.
That's an example of the worst ideas of capitalism shoved into a caricature, which is what modern culture likes to do a lot. But you know how it is. Gotta keep everybody who's poor happy or something, or blah, blah, blah.
Or if you're Phil, nerve staple them all.
Yeah, but he's more fascist. At least in games.
Well, this definitely isn't the first time that I've ever seen an internet post about someone with, like depression or something like that using a video game for therapeutic purposes. I see a lot of stuff like this about Dark Souls in particular, which, is a surprising one considering how most people consider that game to be so completely bleak. But a lot of people do find it helpful for coping with depression because of the ways that it encourages the player to, even though it beats you down, it at the same time encourages you to get up and dust yourself off and try again.
I think there are better games for dealing with depression.
Oh, sure. I mean, probably not a game that is constantly beating you down would probably be good as well.
I think Minecraft is really good.
Pretty much any Zen game, I think, is going to be good. I think I've seen people talk about like No Man's Sky being good for that sort of thing.
I would disagree with No Man's Sky, but No Man's Sky is a good game now. So
I've heard.
I'm mostly in the camp that a game that makes you do relentless things that don't really give you any payoff don't do well for depression games as depression healing, because if you're not making progress, visibly, or you don't feel like you're making progress, it can be just the same kind of menial, everything sucks kind of way.
Well, I think that's one of the ways that No Man's Sky has supposedly improved. Like, my understanding is that the game actually does feel a lot more purposeful now.
And there's the expeditions that come out every so often, and sometimes they rerun them. So you have a set of goals and you're doing some different things. Get new shinies.
But like, I
And
don't recommend Starfield for depression stuff, because Starfield feels very repetitive after a while. Usually by the time you're at the end of the game, it's pretty repetitive, but I didn't really feel that until later. But I would definitely not play that game if you don't want to be depressed.
Yeah, back when I was a teenager, well, but I had better luck with playing role-playing game things where you got to be the hero, because everything else at the time I had crap going on, and it felt like I couldn't make things happen in real life, but in a game I could go in there and I could make good things happen. And that, even though it was only a virtual world, it made me feel better. Nowadays, like if I get a little bit depressed and stuff, that's honestly Stardew Valley, because you can just sit there and chill. You don't have to plant a huge farm and make mega wine crops. You could just keep exploring, keep going fishing, just
Do
gather
what you
everything up.
want.
Yeah. Or if I get really frustrated with things, I can just pop into Hitman and kill a couple of syndicates. That's better.
Yeah.
And I would think that a game like Civilization would probably also be pretty good, because of the fact that it does emphasize forward progress a lot, and you're always hitting those short-term, intermediate-term, and long-term goals and milestones. So there's always that little bit of dopamine rush.
Not to mention killing Genghis Khan by beating him.
It's true, yeah, and taking all of your frustrations out on like Montezuma and Genghis and all of them. Yeah, sure.
Alexander, Shaka, Ragnar.
End up with one of those guys as your neighbors and beat them to the conquering.
Not Sitting Bull, though, because you don't want to rush him. But anyway, Alpha Centauri is really good if you are very interested in philosophy and ideology and how things should be done versus how society believes they should be done. And I think that's all we need to talk about for that.
Games is a healing tool.
Well, that too, but
it's just, we were talking earlier about some of the a little bit older than us generations having a hard time with the video game music. I think they probably wouldn't necessarily see the value in games as a healing tool either, but we know, y'all know, listening.
I think I had my strongest response on that front to the very beginning of the Grand Tour on Amazon, where it starts off, it's raining at BBC and the guy just got fired, and then it starts playing this really awesome music that's like, I can see clearly now the rain is gone. And then it becomes awesome and more awesome and more awesome, and then you're on a stage surrounded by drones and really old cars and explosions, and for some reason I respond to that a lot. And video games can often do the same thing.
Well, there's definitely no shortage of explosions in video games, that's for sure.
I actually think the shortage of explosions in some video games makes the explosions better.
Oh, well, yeah, I mean, almost any time you show some restraint in your deployment or execution of something, it usually makes that execution better.
Even Civ has explosions, big nuclear explosions.
It's like it's a TV show that's been running for 12 years. They've never killed off a character, and then one of them just, in the middle of nowhere, just dies. You're just like, oh, I guess that's on the table now.
Well, long-running shows and the crazy things they could do could be an entirely different topic, but that's not Civilization stuff.
Nope.
What is Civilization stuff is a list of good world... We like lists. It's a top 11. No, wait. Yeah, well, sort of a top 11.
You cut out for what the actual list was, so it's
Best
top
World
11.
Wonders... Yes.
Like, you cut out again. It's...
Okay, microphone, cut that out. Top 11 best world wonders to build.
There you go.
Number 11. Starting at number 11. The Oracle gives you, what is it? One culture, one faith, negative 25% cost, 2 great person points.
Well, it's negative 25% cost for great people, which arguably makes it one of the most powerful wonders in the game.
Yeah, because a lot of other things will do it for a specific great people, but this is all great people. Especially if you're trying to run, I guess, for like science or culture. This might be a really good one.
Yeah, it's basically the Oracle is an always build if you can do it.
Yeah, I'm surprised it's not higher on the list. But yeah, especially in Civ 6, where all the great people come from a shared pool of great people, as opposed to like each Civ generating them independently. Like getting those early advantages on great people means you kind of get almost all of the great people in like whatever category you have that advantage in.
Yeah.
And if you get like the great writers and the great artists especially, like you get like all of the great works. And get all of the theming bonuses for all of your museums because you're the only person who has like sculptures.
Well, the theming bonus for sculptures is harder because you need more than one artist who does it.
And I think there's like only 3 in the game that make them.
I think there's more than that since the pack that added more great wonders or added more great people. Like I've noticed that since they added like 4 or 5 different great people types in one of the new Frontiers Pass DLCs, I forget which one it was, but there are more opportunities to get great people now.
But even then, I think they still choose a subset of the great people in each category for each game. So you're never going to see all of the great people in any one game, which means there's now even a chance that the like artists in particular who make sculptures specifically might not even show up at all.
I don't think that's true, but I don't know for sure. Because when I play a standard game, I always get the same great people in the same order. I know that there are some that you don't see because they get nobody gets them before the era advances.
Oh, okay, that might be what I'm thinking about then.
But it's like you get toward the end of the game and you run out of great people for art types especially. And it's like, how many great musicians are there in the game? I don't think there's that many, but there are so many writers and so few places to put works of writing. And you get them so much earlier, it's just like, oh, come on. We should have 3 in the great writing sections and less in the artist sections because there's just so many more of them. Players focused on domination may want to skip this wonder. No, because you don't want any AIs getting any great admirals or great generals.
And I can understand that in terms of you might want to take those resources to build the army you're going to go conquering with instead, but yeah.
Yeah, I can see that advice as like an opportunity cost sort of thing where might be other wonders that you emphasize or prioritize higher, like maybe like the Terracotta Army or something like that.
Alternately, take it from whoever built it.
Yeah, there's that too, because this is one of those wonders that gives you just passive bonuses throughout the rest of the game. So you can let another player build it and then just take it from them. It's not like one of those wonders that gives you like an instant one-time thing.
Okay, number 10 is the Petra. 2 food, 2 gold, 1 production, and it really helps the desert around you, especially if you have a very desert-heavy piece of your continent. You know, you might have one city that's all desert or half or more desert. Build Petra there.
The problem is, in a city that's mostly desert, it's hard to build it in time.
Well, that 2 food and 2 gold and 1 production, if I remember correctly, that's on every desert tile.
Desert tile,
the city
yeah.
works.
It will turn a mediocre desert city into a megapolis, you know.
Yeah, this description like doesn't do it justice because it just says 2 food, 2 gold, 1 production. Like, that's like building an improvement. Like, no, that's on every desert tile.
That's a pretty good yield for any tile in the game, really. Especially an unimproved tile.
Yeah, because then you turn around and you can still build mines on the hills or turn some of them into farms, and then you're getting even more from it.
I don't know if it affects the ones that are for... Like, does it affect floodplains tiles?
I don't think so.
I think that's the exception.
I also don't think it does oases. So I think it's basically just desert, regular desert, and desert hills. But it does stack with other things. So if you have like a wonder, a natural wonder in there that buffs adjacent tiles, like that will stack.
Eye of the Sahara.
Yeah.
Uluru, yeah. Does this game have the arch, or is that Civ 5?
No, it has the arch, yeah. Doesn't come up as often as the Eye of the Sahara or Uluru, but yeah.
And I also want to point out that, you know, obviously this wonder is only worth building if you have a city in deserts and have like multiple desert tiles. It's not worth building if you have like a city that has like 1 desert tile out on its edge.
Tell that to the AI.
Yeah, other than to potentially deny it to another player who would actually get a lot more use out of it. I also want to point out that There is also the other wonder. I want to say it's like the St. Basil's Cathedral or the Kremlin or something like that. That is basically the same wonder, but for like tundra tiles.
That would be, I think, St. Basil's Cathedral, yeah. Also known as the Kremlin.
Also known as the opening screen on some versions of Tetris.
Yeah, so if you're on desert or tundra, you definitely want to look for those two wonders, and that would come in handy for the that Viking scenario that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, but it's so late in the game.
Yeah, it is really late.
Yeah, that's a problem for St. Basil's Cathedral. By the time you get to it, it's not going to make as much of a difference as Petra does, because Petra is early in the game.
Yeah, I want to say St. Basil's Cathedral is like what, like late Renaissance, maybe early industrial?
I think it's like mid-industrial.
Is it that late? And also, is it on
Wow.
the tech tree or is it on the culture tree? I forget.
I do not know. Let's open the Civ Wikia, even though we're not supposed to use Wikia anymore. Because, screw you, fandom. But, yeah,
Until we have another option.
Yeah. Civ Wikia. Oh, I hate this website. I hate this website. I hate this website. I hate this website.
Yeah, but while we're on the topic of talking about things like EA and 2K need to give us remasters of old Civ games, like 2K, here's another like little bit of advice. Like, you should have an online Civilopedia on the internet.
Yes, 100%.
That would be amazing.
Now,
Oh.
I do want to qualify that statement by saying that should not replace the in-game Civilopedia.
Oh,
Because
God.
I played games like Total War or whatever, where they have their in-game Civilopedia, but it just opens a web browser in the game. And please don't do that.
Absolutely
But you should
not.
also maintain a website that has all the Civilopedia information on it as well. That would be helpful, especially for us.
And
'cause we look
don't
up this
let
stuff all-
people put comments on that. Because that's just more moderation you have to do. Not worth it.
Oh yeah, I mean, and why would you need to? Like, it's not a discussion topic. It's just an informational thing.
St. Basil's Cathedral is a Renaissance-era wonder that must be built adjacent to the city center. It gives 3 relic slots, 100% religious tourism in the city, and +1 food, +1 production, and +1 tundra or culture to all tundra tiles for this city. It is
What is the
unlocked.
specific-
It is unlocked with
Okay.
Reformed Church,
which is a civic.
which is a civic. It also unlocks the golf course.
You know what goes good with a big army? A big navy. Number 9 is the Venetian Arsenal, which gives you 2 great engineer points per turn, but more importantly, receive a second naval unit for each naval unit trained in one of your cities.
It's really nice if you need a lot of boats, but you don't usually need a lot of boats.
I guess slightly
Well,
more
it
useful for
also-
multiplayer, but
It's also good, kind of, if you just need any boats, because you get double, for your production. So, like, even if you're just building a small navy, like, it becomes a moderately sized or large navy because of this wonder.
and the tip in here I hadn't realized, if you're at the point where you can construct the fleets or armadas, it also gives you an extra fleet or armada. I did not realize it could do that.
Yeah,
I didn't know
that's.
that either. Is that a recent change?
I don't think
I d-
that's. I don't think that's a recent change, but I've never thought of that before, so I don't know.
Less documented, or because you don't see as many naval battles in the game. Not many people have paid attention to it, but yeah. I mean, obviously you'd have to have a lot of production in that city to build the fleet or armada, but if I could have 2 for 1, oh heck yeah. And note that
Well, I
it's
guess it makes
constructed,
sense.
I don't
mean,
think
It's just building a unit.
yeah, I don't think you can buy into the Armada's Venetian Arsenal. I don't think.
I don't
And
think you
yeah.
can buy an armada from a city, even.
And if memory serves, I think like gold purchasing units with the Venetian Arsenal also gives you an extra unit. So
I believe so.
it's
yes.
also a good way to build a sizable navy very quick.
Which, since a lot of the naval-based civs tend to have a high economy, there you go.
Well, yeah, and it's good because when you get to that point in the game where you have like the frigates and like privateers and stuff like that are unlocked, like you probably haven't built very many naval units up until that point.
because they're mostly useless up until that point, unless you're in Vikings.
Well, and I think I'm trying to remember because I get Civ 6 and Civ 5 confused in this regard. Is there only the one? I think there's still the galleys and the triremes, right? And the galleys, the trireme I think upgrades to frigates, and the galley upgrades to caravels. I think.
I think one upgrades to frigates and one upgrades to the physical ships. Like there's physical combat ships, and then there's ranged
the
combat ships. I think the galley I don't remember because I think they switched in Civ 6, and I never build early ships in Civ 6. But I think
Yeah, I want to say the galley was the melee one in Civ 6, and the trireme was like a ranged naval unit, which upgrades then to the frigate. But there's nothing that upgrades into the privateer. So if you want privateers, and I personally love the privateer units, then the Venetian arsenal is great for that because you get a lot of privateers from it. And that coastal raid ability is great to use against enemies in warfare, and it's also really good. It's also really good for tracking down those lingering barbarian outposts. In the little islands out in the middle of the ocean somewhere, and you can just bombard them and then pillage them for gold. And they give you bonus gold, I think, too, with one of the promotions.
okay, so galleys are melee ships, and the other unit is the quadrireme, which is
your
a
range.
ranged ship that comes an era later. Hello, did we die?
No, nope. Don't have much more for the Venetian arsenal other than you should try building it when you need to have a big navy. It's fun. Number 8 is the pyramids, which my brain is already saying, shouldn't this be higher? Because what it does, you get two culture from it, but more importantly, you get free action, you get an extra action for all builders permanently. Every other builder, there's a policy that gives you some extra actions, but this does it permanently for all the builders you build, whether you're running that or not.
For the rest of the game.
For the rest of the game, yeah.
Also, you get a free builder.
Yeah, a free builder, which especially as early as you're going to be building the pyramids, the free builder is going to make a lot of difference. And it will have that extra action. That many extra actions is that many less builders you have to build, which means you can, go through, get all your improvements done a lot earlier, a lot quicker, snowball effect. It's one of those things, it's not an obvious big woo build me thing, but it's, you want it. You should be building it. You should take over whoever built it.
I think we all agree.
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
unless-
I don't think it's...
Unless there's been a toddler incident.
No, just that he's very talkative. He has a lot to say about Civ today, I guess.
That's okay. He hasn't been much of a problem. Actually, I don't think he's been a problem at all.
And I'm also surprised the pyramids are behind number 7, which is Temple of Artemis. It's like,
Temple of Artemis is great if you want a really big city, but
it's one really big city, though.
it's one really big city.
Yeah. 4 food, 3 housing, and extra amenities from plantations, pastures, and camp. And you do need to have what I think does better if you've got the more forests nearby, I want to say. Or you have to have some camps and stuff nearby, too. It's kind of, you need a very specific city to build it in, and even then it's best for that city.
Yeah.
I feel like this is one of those wonders that the AIs always beat me to. Even if I do end up with a good city that has like some camps where I want this wonder, the AI always has me beat to it by like 10 or 20 turns. I think it probably comes down to whether or not you start with camps near your capital.
It's a really good wonder to take off of an enemy.
Yeah, and you will occasionally have that one specific city that you want to settle early, that's in your first 3 or 4, if it's not the capital, that you might want to build it in, but after that it's kind of, and somebody's probably already built it by then anyway.
Probably.
Thing is that I don't see built as much by the AI, the Colossus. A lot of times I'm the one that gets to build this, and it's like, why are you guys waiting? But 3 gold,
Yeah,
this
is like the other end of the spectrum for me. This is the wonder that I almost always get if I have a coastal city. The AIs never seem to build it, but it's great. Well, Mackey's about to tell us what it does.
Yeah, 3 gold, 1 great admiral point per turn, 1 extra trade route, and a free trader unit as well. And it's like the earlier you do that, the earlier you get all those in. It's not as strong a snowball thing as say the pyramids, but the extra economy early on, yeah, I love that.
A free trade unit, especially that early in the game, is amazing.
Yeah, because it's hard to build your trade unless you're focusing on it. It's hard to get your trade route capacity up early.
Well, I mean, for one thing, you need the prerequisites for them. So, like early in the game, you only have 1 like trade route even available, and the trade units are fairly expensive at the beginning of.
Yeah, compared to everything else you're building, so you get the free unit and the free trade route, extra trade route capacity. So you're doubling the amount of trading you can do, and we go back to the snowball thing. If you little things early on like that are going to pay off down the road.
Yeah, and you can also use it for things like, you send trade routes to city-states, and if they give you the quest for the trade route, then you get the suzerain bonuses, and then also sending them to neighboring civs will give you little, diplomatic modifiers. They might like you more if you're sending them trade routes. So yeah, there's a lot that you can do with that extra trade route. And then it's also more flexibility to send trade routes between your own cities to increase their, food or production and growth, and get your early cities up and running way earlier.
And connected. Even just connecting to the city states or the other civs, and then having a spare / extra one you could use to connect your cities together while you're at it.
Yeah, that's something that pays off later for sure. Like early in the game, roads kind of don't do all that much, but yeah, when later in the game, if you realize you never got around to making them, you're gonna regret it.
Yeah, or if you've got a like the game of the month map type thing we're talking about, where you've got all those barbs. If you have the roads earlier to shuffle your units around a little faster to defend against barbs, or even defend against an invading army. It's one of those that doesn't look hugely impressive on paper if you just look at the things, but when you think about it, it's like, no, actually, this is going to do a lot for me. Number 5, Forbidden City gives you the 1 wildcard policy slot and 5 culture. That extra wildcard slot can be very helpful. It doesn't matter what type of victory you're trying to go for. Extra wildcard slot is great.
Yeah, I mean, even at 5, I think this is underrated on this list. Like, this is a wonder that I would put like top 3, maybe even number 1 overall.
I wouldn't put it number 1, but I'd put it number 2 or 3.
I mean, a free wildcard policy slot is just so versatile. There's so much you can do with that.
And if you're going for a culture game, the earlier you get extra culture like that, that's going to build up over time. I mean, you do need the flat land near the city center, so you've got to reserve a spot for it. So you don't try to build everything so close.
Yeah, and this is another one that the AIs like a lot too. So
yeah,
like, you need to start working on it early and make sure you're like sending that city some production trade routes or whatever to make sure it gets done fast. Do some chopping, because yeah, this is one that I want almost every game, and the AIs will beat you to it quite frequently on the higher difficulties.
Agree.
Yep. Number 4 is a mausoleum at Halicarnassus.
This one doesn't belong on the list.
Yeah, I was like, so the AI often undervalues it, but I also kind of undervalue it too. 1 science, 1 faith, 1 culture, and you can use a great engineer 1 additional time.
I don't know, that might not be something to scoff at, because those great engineers can be used to rush future wonders. So
yes, but you need it next to a harbor as well, and also you don't want to be building a ton of wonders, and not every great engineer gives you the ability to speed up a world wonder. There's only a few of them.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I definitely don't think this is number 4. Like, I would for sure put the Forbidden Palace ahead of this. Definitely.
I'd put everything on this list ahead of this.
Yeah, it's not something I've built very often. Part of that is because you have to have near the harbor, and I usually have other things for the harbor cities to do. And by the time I'm thinking about this is something that gets filled in if I don't have something for a harbor city to build. But even then, I always forget about using the great engineers, because I don't know, at least the way I've played games, I don't get enough great engineers to make as much use of it as they're talking about here.
Most of the world wonders, or most of the engineers that do world wonder stuff, come in the middle of the game, and this wonder isn't exactly the earliest thing you want to build. There are other wonders you want to build first.
There's a lot of setup that goes into getting your money's worth out of this, because for one thing, you need the harbor, and do you also need a lighthouse too, or is it just the harbor?
It says it only needs a harbor, but it might need a lighthouse.
I think it's just the harbor. But even then, like at this point in the game, the AIs in the game often, unless you have like just nothing but like Vikings and Carthage or Phoenicia and stuff like that in the game, they don't focus a lot on navies early in the game. So the AIs don't build a lot of harbors, and since Civ 6 has that mechanic where district costs scale down based on the number of that districts that have been built, the harbors stay very expensive for quite a while into the game. So getting that prerequisite is generally a lot more time consuming and a lot more expensive than getting the prerequisite districts for other wonders, because all the other civs are building those districts too, and they become cheaper. But then not only that, but in order to get the benefit from the great engineers, you need districts that are generating great engineer points. So you need the workshop districts, the industrial districts, and those aren't unlocked until like the middle of the medieval era. So even at the time that if you do go to build the mausoleum early, you're not getting much benefit from it right away because you don't have that industrial infrastructure up and running yet either. And that's also probably going to be time consuming, especially if you're the first one to get to it and those districts aren't getting the discount from other civs having already built them.
Okay, on to the top 3. Number 3, the Colosseum. 2 culture, 3 amenities, but there's the whole thing about build it within everything within the cities within a 6-tile radius.
Yeah, this is definitely, I think, belongs in the top 3 as well. The big issue is whether or not your cities are placed appropriately to let you actually get this benefit. I would like it a lot more if, and this is the case with several wonders and districts and buildings in Civilization VI. They have like a set range, and I kind of wish that they would just give their bonus to like the X closest cities instead of just all city. And then there's also the even more confusing ones is when you have like the industrial districts, like what is it, like the factories and the power plants.
Yeah.
That like, and it's like, okay, well, do you have to have the city center within 6 range, or do you have to have another industrial zone within 6 range? Like
I'm
the
pretty
wording
sure
is
it's
kind of,
the zones themselves.
yeah, but the wording is kind of confusing, so it's one of those things that you just have to kind of like learn from trial and error, or go do a bunch of research on the internet to figure it out. Thankfully, the Colosseum isn't that complicated. It's pretty straightforward that it's the city center. But yeah, it would be a lot better. I mean, it's already really good, but it would be a lot better if it just gave that bonus to the closest cities instead of actually having to have the cities within that that range, because that also means those city workable tiles are going to be overlapping a lot, which means your max potential productivity in districts is going to be reduced at the end of the game.
Yeah, they did point out you could on the edge of your territory in the direction you're conquering, and that would help with soften the blow in the first few cities you go into. So maybe they don't want to revolt immediately. All right, number 2, Angkor Wat. 2 faith, 1 population, and 1 housing in existing city. Yes,
So basically,
please, Sector?
it's the Civ 4 Hanging Gardens all over again.
And also
Except
the
I think
AI.
the Civ 4 Hanging Gardens just gave you a free population. This is just
Yeah,
increasing the population cap. You still have to grow the city.
No, you get a population from completing Angkor Wat in this city, but you don't get a population in every other city. You just get a housing in every other city, which is what Hanging Gardens did.
I could have swore Hanging Gardens was 1 extra pop in every city, but I could be wrong.
I don't think it's every.
in some. I want to
Well-
say in some version of Civ that was true, but I don't remember which one.
All right, let's use our famous Wikia.
Google Foo time.
Civ 4. Well, that's not.
Well, in the meantime, Angkor Wat is definitely one of the best religious wonders, because the religious wonders always have that like huge asterisk next to them that they're not worth it unless you're going for religious play.
But this is worth it regardless. Yeah.
Yeah, this is one where it doesn't matter whether you founded a religion or not. Well, actually, do you have to have founded a religion to build this? That might be a requirement. But it doesn't matter if you're going for religious victory or not. Like, this one is worth building. And especially if you're playing as a civ that emphasizes city growth. Like, for example, the... oh, gosh, I don't think they're called Siam in Civ 6. Having so many games and so many leaders in civs now, they all kind of get confused together. Oh, gosh, what's the Southeastern Asian civilization in Civ 6?
Vietnam?
There's
No,
Vietnam.
or-
There's Indonesia.
I think they were in the vanilla game or in the first expansion. I don't know. I'm spacing on which one it was.
Chimera.
Yeah. I think that was it. The Khmer. They have like the bonus like aqueducts and stuff like that, and get bonuses for city growth. Like this wonder is phenomenal for them.
It was 1 population and 1 health in all cities, so you were right in Civ 4.
I see. I was thinking one of them did the population.
It did both.
Yeah. Yeah, health was housing, sort of ish.
Kind of.
Yeah, you can't get sick from not having enough housing.
I beg to differ, but
In real life, yes, that's different, but in the game, which leads us to number 1, which is Killa Kisawani. I think I got that right. You get 3 envoys, a 15% boost to yields from the city-states you're the suzerain of, and while you're the suzerain of 2 or more city-states, another 15% boost to every city. It's like, if you're going, I don't know that I would put it number one in a Wonders list, but if you've got if you're a Civ where you can do a city-state focus, this is great.
Yeah, for the few civs and leaders that really go for city states, like I think like Greece maybe is probably a really good example. This is amazing. For everyone else, I think it's kind of mid tier. Like it's good. You should go for it if you can, but I would not bend over backwards unless I specifically have a civilization or leader that really benefits from it. I would definitely prefer to have the Forbidden City over this as a, in any random match of Civilization 6. And probably also the Colossus. I'd rather have the Colossus than this.
Yeah, it's a little more specific. And what would we put as number one that would be good for any playthrough? I mean, okay, we've got
Oracle.
Forbidden City. Yeah, Oracle and Pyramids, because we were talking about that earlier. Why is Pyramids so low?
Well, I nominated the Forbidden City for number one, and I'm standing by that.
I'm nominating Oracle for number one.
I think my top three personally would be, and not necessarily in any particular order, but yeah, the Forbidden City, the Colossus, and the Colosseum, I think would be like my favorite go-to wonders.
Ombudsman Scott polar base is pretty funny.
It's so late in the game, though, and I don't get to that late in the game often enough to build it.
It's so late in the game and so weak compared to its cost. What's your number one, Mackie?
I'm not. I would probably go for. I know it sounds weird. I would go for something like Pyramids because it's universally good. I mean, yeah, Forbidden City also. I like Pyramids up in there. I like Colossus in there. I like the early game wonders because they can snowball so much. There's other things can help later. Rural Valley didn't even get mentioned, and that's later in the game. But
yeah, I was about to say that just looking through this list, I don't think there's a single wonder in here other than I think the Venetian Arsenal that's later than the medieval era.
Yeah, because I like Venetian Arsenal a lot too. I like to go beat up on the AI with the Navy because I know they can't Navy. I'm terrible.
I like to beat up on the AI with Air Force because I know they can't Air Force.
Yeah, Ruhr Valley should definitely be on this list. I would probably even, if I had to remove something, I would maybe remove the even the Venetian Arsenal in order to put Ruhr Valley in here, because the Venetian Arsenal again is really you have to have a particular kind of map.
Yeah, whereas Ruhr Valley, it doesn't matter what kind of I don't know, it doesn't matter what victory you're going for. It gives you so much production.
You
can build a bunch of wonders. You can build a bunch of stuff for science. You can go to space victory. You can build a huge army. Yeah.
And then another wonder that later in the game that I would maybe consider putting on this list is I keep forgetting how to pronounce it. The Estadio de
Macarena,
the big Brazilian soccer stadium, which is basically like a turbocharged Coliseum, but it's not available until like the modern era. But it's like friggin' amazing in terms of like I think it's like bonus amenity to every city instead of just like having the nearest 6 or whatever.
I think that one's too expensive because usually by that point in the game I have so many other amenities that I'm not worried about it.
It is very expensive, yeah. But if you are in a game where like those extra 1 or 2 amenities would bring like all of your cities up to being ecstatic, where they get all of those bonuses from happiness, like it's pretty great for that late game push. But it does really suffer from being so late in the game. All of the late game wonders are really hard to recommend because of the fact that in most cases you've either already won the game and anything you build at this point on is basically ceremonial, or you've kind of you're way behind and you're probably not building any of them anyway.
I like Eiffel Tower.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Mackie.
No, so I was just agreeing with that. The Eiffel Tower, yes. It was a +1 for Eiffel Tower.
I also like Broadway, but that one is harder to justify.
It's just when you're trying to do culture, because there's a handful of ones like that that are later in the game that are specifically for you culture boosting as opposed to more.
Yeah, there's that, and I think there's also, I think in Civ 6 it's also called the Hermitage, which is like just gives you like 4 or 5 like wild card great work slots, which is great for just like stashing them away if you are running away with all the like great writers and artists and stuff like that, and you run out of slots.
Well, you got to build enough cities to fill all those slots. Shall we conclude this day's show?
I think so.
Okay, well, in that case, thank you for joining us for PolyCast episode 427. I have been one of your regular hosts, MegaBearsFan, joined by CanusAlbinus,
Affected by the ghost of Christmas past.
Makahlua,
I need to find lunch and more caffeine now.
and our super special guest host, my 2-year-old.
Aw.
All right, hey, he even said something on cue. Good job.
Civilization 3, 4, 5, Beyond Earth, and 6 sound clips copyright Take-Two Interactive. Copyright the PolyCast at thepolycast.net.